So thank you everyone for attending. This is the October 7th, 2021 Budget Advisory Commission meeting via Teams. I'm going to do a roll call. Lindsay Hobson.
Here.
Anna Brawley.
Here.
Carolyn Hall.
Carolyn said she'll be a couple minutes late.
Okay, so we'll include her when she comes in. Tasha Hutch. Okay. Jonathan King.
Here.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hello.
Nolan Clauda,
yes, I'm here.
Clauda, thank you for correcting me. Appreciate that. Carla McConnell. Carla's not here. Jimmy Miner. Nope. Okay.
I didn't hear my name called. This is Alyssa Rodriguez. Sorry if I missed it. I'm here though.
Okay, yeah, you were next, Elise.
Oh,
Alyssa, so
sorry, I thought you were done, Carl.
And then I just saw James join in. So James Smallwood.
Yes.
All right. Madam Chair, we have a quorum. So I'm going to call the meeting to order then. Or you guys call the meeting to order. I keep messing that one up.
Okay, with that, we'll call the meeting to order and begin the start the land acknowledgement. A land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes and respects Indigenous peoples and the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and the land. I acknowledge that we live and work on the unceded land of the Dena'ina people and thank them for their past, present, and future stewardship of the land on which we live. And then we can move on to the assembly report. Forrest. Oh, I'm sorry, okay, we're a little bit out of order. For the approval of the agenda, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as, as is here?
So moved. This is Nolan.
Anna, I'll second. Okay. Great. And then now we can move on to the assembly report.
Thank you, Lindsay. I don't have a long report today. I think everyone knows that we received the budgets last Friday evening, and for better or worse, we've had a very busy week and a half at the assembly, and so I think that has consumed most of our attention, just going through and responding to emails, that kind of thing. So I know myself and my colleagues have been looking at those, have started to look at those budget packets, as I'm sure many of you have as well. But I don't have detailed thoughts at this point. I have the schedule here, and I don't know if you guys have already received it. Have you received the schedule of planned work sessions and that kind of thing?
I'd have to look back, but I do believe we have that.
Okay, good.
Yes, we have. Okay.
Great. So just the next couple, then the budget, of course, will be formally introduced on October 12th. First work session is Friday, October 26th. And then, of course, we have the regularly scheduled budget hearing on October 21st at 12:10, and that'll be on Teams as well. We don't anticipate, unfortunately, we don't anticipate the COVID rates falling anytime soon. So with that, yeah, I can answer any questions, but again, I don't have a detailed report this time.
Does anyone have any questions for Forrest?
I'll say also, I unfortunately have to leave at noon. I have to get to another small short event before our next special meeting tonight at 5. So we're staying busy.
Oh, it looks like there's a question.
Yeah, this is Jonathan. I just want to, it's not a question, it's just a statement. I want to thank Assemblymember Dunbar and the rest of the Assembly for the extraordinary amount of time that they've put in over the last week. it's unfortunate that we find ourselves in a situation where assembly members are having to put in this level of effort. So just thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I'll say, I mean, I do think that insofar as it applies to the budget and the Budget Advisory Commission, it is starting to gum up the works on other things. And if it bleeds into next week, you could see other items start to be delayed, or consideration of other items be delayed. Last Tuesday, we sort of did our best to get everything else out of the way and clear the decks before we started this public testimony. But now public testimony is gone for, going on into its second full week. And I'm not sure if we're going to do that same thing next week. And so, unless the sort of filibuster that's happening now stops, and we can get to debate, I think it is going to start to bleed into other items, which is unfortunate. But there's only so many hours in the day, and we also have real staff concerns, both the administration and the assembly, with police officers present and on overtime in some cases, and the clerk's office staff being quite burned out by the whole thing. So we'll see how it goes. I think there will be some drama tonight, and then we'll see how things go into next week.
Looks like Anna has a question.
Yeah, thanks. I just I'm aware of the delays and why it's happening, and I was just wondering, at this point, do you and your colleagues have concerns about this impacting the budget process? Because again, it's one of the core functions of of local government is to pass a budget, and the administration to carry it out. So just looking at this timeline, I guess I wanted to express concern and wonder if that's been discussed among the members as well.
I obviously we can't have detailed discussions outside of a public hearing. I have heard another member or two express those kind of concerns. I think that I guess I remain optimistic. I think that we can get this resolved in the next week or two. And if there is a delay to the way the budget is set up, I think we will still have time for the necessary work sessions and public hearings. I think it will. I would be surprised if it prevented us from doing so, unless there is more conflict in the coming months. I think there will be quite a few amendments proposed, and so looking at the timeline that's proposed, though, I mean we've built in almost a month-long cushion, right? So the proposed schedule has us passing the budgets rather on November 23rd. That means we have at least 2 regularly scheduled meetings and potentially special meetings in December to pass the budget before the end of the year. That's not ideal, but the budget process often bleeds into December, so I wouldn't be surprised if that happens.
Thanks.
Thanks for that, Forrest. And I also want to note that Tasha Hodge has joined us for the record. Are there any other questions for Forrest? I have a quick question, Forrest. I know that as part of the testimony, a lot of it is coming in through written testimony, and will that be part of the record somehow?
There was a practice of publishing a resolution with all the emails and all the emails last summer. But that was sort of at the discretion of the chair. I'm not sure if they're going to do it this time. And there are 2 different ways to send in testimony. There's one way to send it in just to the assembly through the WWMAS. I'll put it in the chat through this email address. But there's also a link that goes to a testimony sort of collection form, and I thought that they were publishing the testimony collection form into the record, but I could be mistaken. At any rate, that testimony gets read and in some cases responded to by the assembly, regardless of whether or not it sort of goes into the public record. I know some people are really want their testimony in the record, and I appreciate that. I've got a couple of those emails, but I think if you didn't take special steps to get that done, just know that the assembly still does receive it and appreciate it and consider it, even if it doesn't end up in the permanent record.
All right, great, thank you. And I echo Jonathan's comments, just thanking you, all the assembly. That's just a lot of time invested, and yeah, really appreciate your service in that regard. Shall we move on to the Anchorage School District report? Thank you, Forrest.
Thank you, guys.
Do we have someone here from, I see Carl Jacobs. Oh, there you are. Hi, Andy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I'll go ahead and start. I don't have a whole lot for an update either. Just give you a quick update on our enrollment for the year. We generally take use September 30th as our kind of snapshot in time to compare enrollment year over year. So we just always have that consistent date in which to make those comparisons. Our September 30th enrollment for this year was 43,390. That is up from 41,962 last year, but still down from 2019, which was 46,229. We had projected for funding purposes 45,266, so we're a little below what we'd actually projected. But the financial impact, while there will be some, we're not really sure exactly what that'll be, as they're still taking the OASIS count. The projections or the enrollment doesn't always equate to funding, because it takes this 20-day average of enrollment over the month of October generally. Elementary schools are at about 93% of our projections, middle are about 97%, and high schools are almost 100% of projections. Alternative schools are 85%, and charter schools are at about 89%. So they're down a little bit, but high schools and middle schools really were pretty close to what we thought would come back. We didn't actually lose a whole lot of those students either during the pandemic. A lot of them stayed on just to do the virtual work. But with that, we're in our budget process right now. We're starting up, getting ready to prepare our FY23 budget. Really, that starts with our first document that'll be presented to the board will be in early December, and that's our pro forma budget, which says, here's how much money we think we're going to get next year. Here's how much things will cost if we keep doing business the way we are right now. And we'll present that to the BAC once that's available as well. But with that, I can turn it over to Carl.
Thank you, Andy. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I don't have much to add. Andy, as always, is super detail-oriented, so I appreciate that. The one thing that may be of public interest, I know I've been asked a couple questions about it, is at a press conference last Friday, I believe, the administration indicated a desire to seek repayment from the district for some SRO funding that the municipality currently pays for. Reading of the initial budget revision or budget proposal also includes some funding related to pools. And so I know the finance committee for the school board meets on the 27th. That happens at noon. And so we'll be taking up just a very initial discussion as to kind of what's involved in that and then how to proceed forward. Certainly don't want to get ahead of the Assembly's deliberations on the budget, as well as our own pro forma budget development process. That's really all I have to add, and certainly welcome any questions or feedback for Andy or I, or things I can take back to the full board as well.
Carl, could you say again when that meeting is?
Absolutely. If it's October 27th, that's at noon.
Great, thanks. Looks like Carolyn has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Carl. Question for you: did ASD have a heads up, or was there any kind of coordination that you're aware of that these cost recoveries from the school district were coming your way? And yeah, Thanks.
Yeah, great question. I can speak to that. And Andy, feel free to let me know if you've heard differently. Because it's a question I had as well. I learned about it as a board member by watching the press conference. During the event itself, Chief McCoy did indicate that he spoke with Superintendent Dina Bishop earlier that day. And that is the information I've kind of confirmed on our side. So that's the best information that I have.
That's the same information I have too.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Carl or Andy? Okay, well, let's move on then to the presentation from Carl on the budgets.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So first and foremost, I would like to present direct government general operating costs that I presented last assemblies at a hall session. The most important number on this slide deck is that we're at the end of the period of August 31st, 2021. We were 66.6% through the year, and the actual spending for the direct cost under general government is 58.5% through the year. We are in the process of preparing an AM. Maintenance and operation, you can see, is at 44.6. That is due to lower than average winter expense activity through January through April. Upcoming construction has been started. More invoices are expected to be received. It's probably very likely, they'll come in line as the year goes by. There's no any outliers. If there's no any other questions, I'd like to move on to the next slide. Okay, next slide, please, Lila. Okay, so this slide is general government. On the left side, you see labor costs and non-labor costs. The percentage is different from 64.1% to 66.6% through the fiscal year. The difference being is that the close of the payroll period. So also on that note, everything looks in line with the expectations on the labor side, and on the non-labor side, we're a little bit higher. As you can see, we're 66.6 through the year, while the actual expense is at 60.8% through the year. Next slide, please. So this slide deck is a typical slide deck of overtime. Thanks to the Assembly member, we did update our overtime budget column D to properly reflect the approved first quarter 2021 approved budgets. And in the previous months, unfortunately, that amount was slightly overstated, but now going forward, it is the correct amount. And on that note, there are higher variances that I mentioned during the Assembly meeting at the whole, the Budget and Finance Committee at the whole, that there are higher overtime costs for the Assembly, Finance Department, Health Department, as well as police. Next slide, please.
Hey,
This is
Carl,
on-
if we could, sorry, if we could pause
Yeah,
for
sure.
a second. It's like Anna has a question on your last slide, potentially.
Sure. Yeah.
Go ahead, Anna.
Go ahead, Anna.
Yeah. Yeah, just real briefly, I wondered, so I understand there's different reasons for overtime, but for example, the health department I know has a number of vacancies. So I wondered if you have any sense, and maybe this is too in the weeds, but if you have any sense of whether that's, fewer staff doing more, more of the work, just knowing how much the health department has going on versus, I just wondered what the relationship to vacancies is in these areas that have a big overage.
No, the ratio of vacancies, I don't know the answer to, but, the health department has been dealing with the COVID-19 response, and they definitely have a lot on their plate. But as it relates to those ratios, I would recommend talking directly to the director for additional answers.
Sure, that makes sense. I mostly just want to note that there's different reasons for overtime, and that may be one of them.
Well, it's significant, 644% over the budgeted. I mean, the difference, was budgeted $7,434, and year to date, as of August 22nd, 2021, $47,908. I guess the ratio seems significant, but the amount is not that significant. However, what I know from the health department, that they're very tight and very well-run department so far, what I have learned. So maybe that 644% is slightly misleading, because the difference is only $40,000 when you really think about it. Anchorage Health Department at a whole, I mean, they have lots of positions. I don't know on top of my head how many positions are out there. But that's how it's reflected in the budget, so I'm reporting on it. So if the group has any other questions, I would defer to the Anchorage Health Department director.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah.
And then look, we have a question from Jonathan. Go ahead, Jonathan. Are you on mute or change your mind?
Thank you.
Okay.
Just to reiterate Member Brawley's point, I think this is a really important point that, if you're going to understand what's really going on in the department, which is one of the things that the commission historically has done, has been able to understand that understanding what's going on with overtime is necessary to that, but it's not sufficient, right? If we have a 644% variance in overtime, but we have a lot of empty spaces in that department, that does not tell you, the 644% does not tell you really what's going on budget-wise there. You need to understand what your labor spend is on a normal, for normal time. If you're missing a lot of people, you could actually be underspending in total. And I recognize that Carl's new to the job, but from my perspective and getting up to speed, from my perspective, sending individual members to the departments is not appropriate. It is the job of OMB to help us understand these things. And so as you get up to speed, my expectation is that you're able to answer those questions and be able to give us the insight as to what's actually going on in that department, because we can't have 12 individual members running around pestering these individual departments. That's the color that the office is supposed to provide. So while I accept that that you may not have that information, I can't personally accept the response of you go talk to the department. That's your job to help us, and that's in code. So I just want to lay that down there as an expectation as a member of this commission. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jonathan, for that comment and for mentoring, quite frankly. And I am getting up to speed as the new OMB director, and under my umbrella, I do have 20-some departments to understand, plus utilities and enterprises. So on that end, I would while I always seek to improve as part of continuous improvement, I do understand the point, and moving forward, I'll do the best that I can.
And if there's any way that we can help you get up to speed, please let us know. We recognize that you're brand new in the position, and 27 departments, it's a lot. So I just want to recognize the place that you're in, but also make it clear that the commission has certain needs, and we're not just going to let those go because of a mayoral transition.
And I completely agree with you. I think on my end, I do have the mental capacity and the ability cognitively to comprehend all these things. I think the only thing on my end I need is time, and as time goes on, life knowledge gets deeper, and the performance gets better. So, but thank you for the comment and the expectation, and I'll adjust accordingly.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Anne, I see your hand up again, but just quickly, I'll just say that I think that these are, I think that the questions that we're asking as a commission here, when you go through your presentation, I think it's good to keep a record of those questions, because you're likely to hear them again when you present this to the assembly members. So I think that, that 644% really does stick out. And so I think that that's, just definitely something that you will want to track down before you finally present it. And if you could share that information back with us, that would be great. Anna, do you want to go on with your question?
Yeah, it's just a suggestion, I guess, to move forward. Is I know that we're looking at rescheduling our work session for later in the month, and so one thing that we can do as BAC members too is just to track our questions, and we could even submit some of them in advance. Again, knowing that it does take time to track this information down, especially if it's about individual departments. So we can talk about that later, but that's another suggestion to kind of manage the workflow, because we're all, this is my first budget cycle too, so we're all learning a lot.
Great, thank you, Anna. All right, go ahead.
So on that note,
the next slide.
I will follow up on that 644.4% variance in more detail, and I'll update the commission accordingly. So, okay, the next slide is the travel budget. I have no comments. Everything looks pretty reasonable. 66.6% through the year, and then total direct government expenses is 25.9%. So I would like to move on to the next slide, if you wouldn't mind, Lila, please. Okay, so yeah, this one's good. So this is a schedule, you've seen it before. I think it's very important for me to first and foremost mention and thank the entire OMB team for their extreme hard work in preparing the 2022 proposed budget for the Assembly that was filed in accordance with the code, and it was filed timely. So I want to recognize that publicly, that I'm very thankful for their hard work and dedication to the mission of OMB as a group. We do have two Assembly work sessions scheduled. The first one is for general government, and the second one actually should be corrected, is for utilities and enterprises. We do not have a scheduled third work session. So in those work session, the overall proposed budget will be presented, and we'll provide more details accordingly. Next slide, please. So the most important message that I want to send here with this slide, the first quarter approved budget for the ending amount was $557 million. The current proposed budget reflects $550 million. For the property tax, we're looking potentially of a decrease from $297.7 million to $295.8 million, which is an estimated cost of $350,000. One would assume for an average home to be in Anchorage of the amount of $350,000 to be an estimated decrease, a change in decrease of $12. On that note, I have no other comment as it relates to the 2022 proposed budget. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, it looks like we have a question from Nolan Clauda.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. And this is kind of just one comment that I just want to make for the group. Is that so it's about a 1.3% decrease in nominal terms, the 2022 budget, but if you look at the inflation rate is about 5.3%. So it total is a cut of around 6.6% if you factor it in that way in real terms, which is how I always like to compare the total budget amount from one year to the next. So I'm just mentioning that for the record.
Thanks. That's a great point. Thank you, Nolan. Anna, do you want to ask your question? And also, if you could mention your message in the chat so it's on the record.
Sure. Yeah. So first, the message in the chat was just suggesting this was on the point of overtime by department was having a table to look at with the number of staff positions and the current number of vacancies, and not to amend the table you had, but just to compare side by side, because I think that would, if you're seeing a lot of vacancies and a lot of overtime, that might be a way to correlate those things. To the extent that that's what's going on. But my other question was, and I understand we're not doing a detailed review of the budget, but for those who have looked at it, I just wanted to understand, there's two different columns, three columns. There's the 2021 continuation budget is the first column for each of these items. And then the 2021 cost, that shows kind of, I think, differences between that. And then the third one is the 22 proposed. So I was just not understanding kind of what the definition of those two columns is. So that would be helpful for me as I start to just read the budget.
I first want to address the number of position of vacancies. At the time of the press conference of last week, there were about 94 positions that were open and available for open in the municipality of Anchorage, which I think it's very, it is very safe to assume that any potential position cuts that are filled, those individuals could seek other opportunities within the government to continue their employment, just because there were vacant positions. And then on the other question, could you repeat your question, the second question, please, Anna, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah, it was just to understand generally in the budget, there's three columns that we're looking at. The first one is the 2021 continuation. The second is the 2021 cost. And then the third is the 22 proposed. So I just wondered, if you could just explain kind of what those first two columns are and how
Sure.
they're different, because that was confusing to me.
Let me grab Marilyn, my deputy, and she'll be the best to answer that question. So I'm going to put that on mute and give me a couple minutes, please. So Anna, Marilyn is coming in right now, and she will provide better answer than I can. So she's coming in right now and she'll be with us in a couple of minutes. One might put me on mute for the time being, please. Thank you.
Marilyn?
Okay, so Marilyn just entered the room. So Anna, could you please ask your question and Marilyn will answer it accordingly.
Sure. So, and just to preface, I understand we're not doing a detailed review of the budget or looking by department right now, but as I'm starting to read the budget, I just really wanted a clear definition of the 3 columns that we're looking at. So the first, the 2021 continuation, the second, the 2021 cost, and the third, 22 proposed. So I understand the proposed one, but I just wondered how do I understand that continuation column versus the cost column?
Can you direct me to the schedule you're looking at, please?
So I'm not looking at a specific one. I mean, I guess as an example, we could look at the alcohol tax because that's the one I was reading. That's Appendix R. But I believe that's how the whole budget's set up. So it's kind of a global question, just how to understand, you know, what is the actual 2021 budget?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's actually a great question. What happens is per code, we are to present the next year's budget at starting with a continuation budget, which means basically the prior year's revised budget, final approved budget at the budget year's costs. And so that's the continuation line. And so the continuation line would include adjustments for the collective bargaining units with the same staff as the prior budget year, rolling over the staff to have their, rolling over the positions to have the current staff in them with their next year's grades and steps and uplifts. So that's what that continuation line means, is it's basically the budget year's services at the the budget year's services, the current year's services at the budget year's costs brings us to continuation. And then from continuation is where the proposed changes are made.
Does that answer? Thank you for that. Anna, does that answer your question?
Partially. So, sorry, let me look what I'm looking at. I think it did just I guess because and I'm using alcohol tax as an example because that's what I looked at the most closely. But for example, I think there was something that was listed as being, you know, $2 million or whatever it was. And my understanding is that was in the approved budget. Sorry, let me find my example so I can be more clear.
Right now on our so we can be all on the same page.
Yeah, and I don't mean to, you know.
Oh, they're excellent questions.
Here, let me find it. Sorry, I hadn't. So I'm looking at Appendix R, and then I'm looking at page 2, for example. So just as an example, the line that says evidence-based grants to providers for child abuse, sexual assault, the second line there. I thought the final version in 2021 was was another 2 million. So I guess does this reflect? Sorry, like I'm not sure how it got from 2 million to that 1.75 million. Or maybe that was just an action that was done that I missed, but those are the kind of things that were confusing me when I looked at this.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. So if you'll actually look at the next line down, and a lot of the budget presentation is an iterative kind of communication is what we try to do. And so the next line down from that evidence-based grants is the constant amendment that occurred during the first quarter of 1Q.
I see.
where he said explicitly, we want to assign, $250,000 of that 2 million for specific things. And so we pulled it out, but those two lines add up to that 2 million that I think you're referring to.
Okay, that makes more sense now. Okay, yeah, that's helpful. And then, like I said, I'm sure I'll have many specific questions, so I'll start writing them down for another discussion.
Sure, it's only $500 million of lines, so yeah. There is a lot of details, and we're here to answer questions if you have them. Absolutely.
All right, great, thank you. And then I see Alyssa, you have a question?
Yeah, this is just kind of a clarifying question. I was looking at page 15 of the mayor's plan that has pretty much the same thing, but it's broken out a bit more so that we can see more details, and just wanted to make sure I was understanding. So I liked this particular one because I think we can see exactly who's being eliminated, but we still have to look into the details for where it's going. But if I'm looking into continuation, reorganization adjustments, if I see a reorganization that's eliminating the entire continuation adjustment, that's how I know that that entire department's being moved somewhere else, not necessarily eliminated, but moved somewhere else. Is that accurate?
If I recall correctly on the reconciliations, I think we show the reorganization after continuation. And I do believe we do indicate if the movement is a reduction on that reconciliation. I do believe we indicate where those activities are going to. So it should be identified on those reconciliations.
Okay, and I'll look in more detail. And I know it's in the additional notes below, but I'm pretty sure it is. But okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify. I appreciate your help.
Are there any other questions? I'll just make the comment that I, as someone, just observing the presentation, I think it is really helpful to kind of get the big picture as well as going line by line. So like a summary of the changes, I think would be really helpful, or just some high level overview so that we can kind of know what to expect when we look at the really detailed slides. And I think that just generally it is hard to digest spreadsheets and things like that through PowerPoint presentations. So I do think that those synopses are really helpful in that regard.
Thank you for that comment, Ms. Chair. Should we move on to part D?
Lila, if you wouldn't mind bringing the agenda back up.
Sure, give me just one moment.
Great. Okay, so on this item D, this is planning our future special work session on the 22 budgets. We had scheduled that for next week, and our understanding is that the administration, for whatever reason, determined that it was not necessary at this time. I did look through, our regulations just to kind of familiarize myself with who calls special sessions or work sessions, and just in terms of who's scheduling. And so it does look like that we as a body can schedule those work sessions. I did also look back and see sort of historically that we do hold the work session on the budget later on in the month. And so perhaps that is what the administration had in mind when it canceled next week's meeting. So if we could go ahead, I don't know if anyone else has any input on that, but if we could go ahead and look at a date toward the end of October to reschedule that work session. Would that work for members of the body? Jonathan?
Madam Chair, just to be clear, there's a difference between a work session and us calling a special session. So a work session would be the administration is agreeing to hold the work session. A special session is something that we call ourselves. So, and it can't be canceled by the administration. So I guess the question is, do we need to ask for a special session, or are we trying to schedule a work session? Thank you.
Okay, that is a good distinction, and I do believe that the regulation, that Jonathan is correct, that the regulation does allow for the BAC or for commissions to schedule special sessions. You know, historically, I think that has been called this special work session, which is a little confusing given the regulation. But Lila, do you know that distinction?
I don't. I can try to look up code and find out for us.
Or historically, if anyone knows, I mean, I don't know why it's been called the special work session. If there is a distinction in terms of who can schedule and who can unschedule those meetings. Oh, Anna, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wondered if the term, I mean, I understand the difference with the work session, but I wonder if special meeting is the best term. I mean, because the purpose of it is for the BAC to make additional time to review and discuss the budget and our recommendations and ask questions. And so I think we do have the power to call a special meeting like any other
Right.
body. So maybe that's just the difference.
Okay, and I see that, yeah, and go ahead, Nolan.
Yeah, Madam Chair, when I was just going to clarify that from my experience when I was chair, I believe that the work sessions that we called were we might have like used different vernacular, but I think that in terms of like the public noticing and the from an ordinance perspective, they were considered work sessions.
They were called work sessions or special meetings?
Work sessions.
Okay. That's helpful context. Well, I think that, oh, Jonathan, did you have something else to add?
Yeah, and this, I think it's just historical perspective, is that in the past, we didn't vote on, you know, we didn't vote on having those meetings. We just talked with the director of OMB, and he said, I will schedule a work session. And the difference, of course, between a work session in the meeting, of course, is that we don't take action during a work session. What code allows for is for the chair, or I think it's 5 of the commission members, to ask for a special meeting. And of course, the difference there is that we can call ourselves into that special meeting. And that it allows us to take action, because traditionally what we would do is have some sort of resolution at some point that would go to the assembly. So that's just, I think, my historical perspective. I think this is my 3rd or 4th year, and we haven't had to call those special meetings before, because I don't remember voting on them, although they may have just been actions by the chair.
Okay, thanks. That's definitely helpful. Go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, maybe just to move it along, a question to the OMB director. I mean, you know, our intent again is to make additional time during this period to review the budget, to discuss BAC recommendations, to ask questions, and, you know, just have that discussion. Whether or not we take action at that meeting or at that work session, I assume we would probably take action at our November meeting. So my question is, to the OMB director, are you willing to schedule a work session, or is the administration willing to schedule one? In which case it's a moot point and we don't need to schedule a special meeting. Or does the BAC need to take action itself and schedule a special meeting?
Well, the goal of the administration is to, thank you for the question through the chair, Anna. The goal of the administration is to welcome all the BAC members to the assembly work sessions, the two that have been scheduled, where the budget will be presented in detail. And I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I make a follow-up then?
Yes.
Then I would like to make a motion that the BAC schedule a special meeting by October 31st.
Tasha, second.
Okay, so the motion's approved, and so we will schedule a special meeting for October
Actually,
31st.
Madam Chair, just to make that stick, would you actually call the question there and say, because you got a first and a second, but I didn't hear you actually call the question of, and approve.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
So is there a motion to for the Budget Advisory Commission to hold a special meeting before October 31st?
I believe there is, and I believe Anna gave that to you and Tasha seconded it. What didn't happen was you calling the question, asking for a vote.
Oh, okay. All right. All in favor? Is that what you're asking, Jonathan? Sorry.
Correct.
Okay. All in favor of the BAC holding a special meeting before October 31st?
Aye.
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 Lila, are you able to record that vote?
So I'm recording it, but
Were you able to capture those?
I think we should probably kind of do like a roll call and then just because we're on a Teams meeting and I can't tell who's saying what. Do you mind just saying everyone's name and then I can document it from there?
Okay, sure. Carolyn?
Aye.
Tasha?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Aye.
Nolan?
Aye.
Alyssa?
Aye.
And James?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Okay. So the motion passes. And can we proceed from there? Jonathan, I'm looking at you.
Yes, as long as, I believe that as long as Lila has recorded the vote, I think we've hit all the necessary steps there.
Okay, great. All right, so Lila, if we could circulate a poll for meeting, I believe that last week of October.
Okay, I can do that.
All right. Anything else on the special meeting before we move on? All right, moving on to audience participation. I did not see anyone join our call, but just to open the floor if anyone from the audience would like to make a comment on anything. Okay, so anything else from the committee? Oh, go ahead, Nolan.
Yeah, Madam Chair. So as far as special meeting, are we all the public noticing and necessary OMA stuff is handled by OMB staff, correct?
I don't know. I mean, I have that question as well. I was worried about the public notice timeline. I'm not sure how many days in advance we have to provide that. And also, yeah, what kind of administrative support we will have for a special meeting. Carl or Lila, could either of you help us with that question?
You know, we need to look at the code because we really don't know. So as it relates to the special meeting and the availability of OMB staff. So I think I'll follow up with everyone accordingly.
Okay, Jonathan?
Yeah, so I will just make Carl's life a little bit easier. You need to refer to AS 4.50.030, paragraph B, sub item 2. The municipality and the school district shall provide sufficient staff assistance as needed by the commission in its review of the municipal and school budgets respectively. So I guess the municipal attorney can determine whether or not that includes noticing the meeting, but I would read it as such.
Jonathan, would you be willing to just send me an email with the code reference? Because you were kind of fast and I just want to make sure that it's on
Yeah,
a reference.
absolutely. I'll send you a link to it.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, and Tasha, I noticed put in the chat 48 hours or 2 business days, and that's public notice for a meeting under the Open Meetings Act. Is that correct, Tasha? Yes, okay, great, thank you. Thank you for that. And so Carl, I guess in terms of scheduling and Lila sending out the poll, some of that would be dependent, assuming that that OMB will be providing support for that meeting. So we will, be dependent on your schedule as well. So if you could just let us know in the next day or so we can get that poll out if that week is going to work for you.
Sure thing. I will do it accordingly.
Okay, great. Thank you. Go ahead, Alyssa.
Thanks, Lindsay. So through the chair, in terms of just general open discussion, I'd like to hear from Carl about, we've had this transition. Can you tell us about what the administration is hoping to get out of the BAC? What kind of feedback is the administration looking for? Is there a particular format and that sort of thing? I would assume that we'll put out a resolution that we typically do and those sorts of things, but how might the BAC be as useful as possible to the administration? Can you speak to that at all?
Sure. I'm writing down the questions and I'll follow up accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, if there isn't anything else, Carl, do you have anything else for us?
No, not at this time. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Okay. Okay, so our next regularly scheduled meeting is November 4th. And
sorry, Madam Chair, I did have a question.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I was waiting for the other discussion to be done. So I just wanted to hear from any members right now. I know, I haven't had a chance to read the budget yet, and maybe others haven't either, but I was just curious if there's things that you guys are particularly interested in focusing on, or maybe discussions from prior years, or just to get a flavor of where folks are at, or what you'll be paying most attention to. And I'll just say for me, certainly the alcohol tax, that's something I'm very personally interested in, so I'm going to be looking at that very closely.
Through the chair, this is Alyssa, and I'm very interested in the general reorganization, the goals of the reorganization. How, you know, if we're moving money from one line to another, and that's all that's happening, which isn't quite all that's happening. You know, what are we hoping to achieve with it? Those sorts of things. So very, very broadly, but those are kind of what I'm trying to dive into as I'm looking into the budget. Is where are things going? What are they moving to? And what can I read out of that as the intended outcome?
Does anybody else have any particular issues of the budget that they're going to focus on? I mean, should we, you know, I don't know that we've divided it up like that in the past, but I do like that idea to take some time to focus on a particular area. I don't know. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that, or any other areas they want to focus in on? Go ahead, Carolyn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I haven't had a chance really to thoroughly review the budget yet, but I do have questions about the mayor's office cutting short community grant recipients, along with how this more fine-tunedly impacts property taxes. I haven't been able to wrap my mind around that yet. I'm new to the commission, so I recognize that there's a lot that I don't know. Yeah, and I'm equally as curious to learn more about the reorganization as well, especially since my understanding at this very preliminary stage is that it may add $600,000 for new middle managers. And I'm curious to just really learn more about this and just kind of like the why behind all of this, what the priorities are there. Thank you.
And I see you have another question or comment.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Just to clarify that I wasn't necessarily suggesting that we like divide up the review, but just I was curious. You know, we're all independent citizens. We're doing this third-party review of the municipality budget, and so I was just curious, kind of what other folks were paying attention to, and that's totally fine if you guys haven't thought about it yet.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And all right. So with that, I think that is there a motion to adjourn?
This is Nolan, so moved.
This is Carolyn, I'll second.
Okay. And with that, our meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.